And we've been talking a lot about the ego and the self, and we've been talking about uh, where we are in terms of our relationship with the ego and the self. We mentioned that the self uh, is uh, uh, the much more spiritual part of who we are. The ego is good. It's good. It does its job, but at a certain point in time, um, it's like the training wheels on the bicycle. At a certain point in time, or a kid or an adolescent, at a certain point in time, you expect different kinds of responses from a child than from an adolescent, and from an adolescent and an adult. An adult who is mature spiritually, we expect totally different behavior, totally different responses, and totally different actions from that person than we would perhaps an adolescent that we probably tend to give the benefit of the doubt because they're still sort of evolving and developing. So a lot of what we've been talking about then has to do with uh, being spiritually mature, and that's what the self is. We use several different examples of that. I think Shell brought up the idea of the ship in the harbor. The ship in the harbor is safe, and sometimes you can go into the harbor to get away from storms. But what are you going to do when you can't get away from that storm and that storm comes into the harbor? Um, so we cannot stay in our comfort zones all the time. We need to learn to deal with um, things that are not necessarily comfortable to us, because it's in these times that we have the opportunity to be propelled towards spiritual growth if we let ourselves. But stopping there, let's see what questions there are, comments, or comments about anything. To my understanding, for me, this will be a wrap up. But again, we'll see how it unfolds. Comments, questions, things you've been thinking about. Doesn't have to be what we're talking about.
This is Kathy. See, Kathy. How
Hey,
y'all doing tonight? Good.
good thing.
You wasn't on yesterday, and I didn't. I got on Saturday, but I couldn't get back in. But you talking about the comfort zone? I noticed a lot times in our church that the people are actually afraid to get out of their comfort zone. They just want to stay there. It's like you got a few of them in there that's willing to move and learn more, but you got some that just wants to stay in the same place where they've been for years, ever since I was old enough to, understand, a few things. But they just afraid to move. And you could talk to them, and you could talk, you turn blue, but they are just afraid. And so what do you have to say on that?
I would say that we've all been there, and there may be some things where we're still there. I mean, every new situation doesn't always, we don't always welcome every new situation with open arms. Sometimes we want to stay in our little zone. But I hear what you're saying, and thankfully many of us are further along in terms of the introspecting. To get out of your comfort zone means that you begin to take responsibility for yourself, for what you learn, for what you are to do in terms of how you think and how you speak and how you act, as opposed to staying in the comfort zone, being preached to, and the preacher might hit a message that resonates with you in terms of, oh, I did that this week. I should be okay for the rest of the week or for the rest of the month. But in terms of being spiritually mature, we have to get better and better and grow more and more every single day, not just every week or every month we say the preacher stepped on our toes today, boy. Well, the issue is We got to get out of our comfort zones because we are responsible for our own growth and development spiritually. We talked about, you may not have heard us on Saturday, Kath, but we talked about the fact that every individual has to take this journey internally. It's a decision. It's a choice, and it's in that journey, that internal journey, that we see the good, the bad, and sometimes the ugly of what we are. We are in terms of our animalistic thoughts, and even our animalistic actions. Animalistic meaning selfish, me, myself, I kinds of things, where we revolve around ourselves and we expect everybody else to revolve around us. So it's scary. It really is. Just think about yourself, and I think about myself when I started getting pushed. And I tell you, Pastor Richard can get you out of your comfort zone really fast with even just a question. So we have to be open to that. And you're right. Some people are not there yet, and we can't make them be there. They have to make that decision. Any other comments or response to Kathy?
Well, they have to make that decision, but always the Creator is providing opportunities to make the decision. Our whole life journey is the opportunity to make the decision to know the Creator and to realize that we are Elohim. So there's always opportunity.
Thank you. The sages say there's no coercion in spiritual things. In other words, no matter how much the preacher preaches, he can't make you do something. No matter how much a friend talks to you, they can't make you do something. So Kathy, the folk that we're talking about have to make a decision for themselves. And you can't make them, I can't make them. They got to do it.
Yeah, and they haven't gotten to that point to where we are Elohim. I go in there saying that, and they'd be like, thinking I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
No. Hey, Kathy, they think you blaspheming.
Exactly.
Right.
It'll make them think, Kathy. It'll make them think.
Yeah, I know it'll make them think. I know. I'm sure it will.
But you can't cast the pearls before swine, though. If they're not ready to receive that and that wisdom,
right,
they got to be ready for that.
Yeah, because I remember when Reverend Richards he did a couple of training sessions years ago, and he was training the deacons, doing a class with them, and he went over some of the same things twice in the meeting, and even today, right afterwards, they was fine. They was doing, what they were being taught. But even today, they went right back to the same old thing before that he ever came. And
I hear you. We talked about that too.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Kathy, we talked about that yesterday too. The fact that the ego wants to keep us on cruise control, wants to keep us in the comfort zone. Our egos. And our egos are tied to our animalistic behavior, our selfish behavior. I want to eat. I want to have sex. I want to procreate. I want to be happy. Those kinds of things, those basic instinctual kinds of things. And every once in a while, something will happen. Either an event or a cataclysmic kind of thing that happens, like this pandemic, that makes people stop and pause and begin to think. And it'll move some people out of what we call the rut of the ego. The ego likes to do the same thing over and over. It doesn't like to change. But every once in a while, something will happen in our lives or somewhere, our jobs, whatever, that gets us out of that rut and makes us begin to think. But and as we said yesterday, sometimes the detour will make you go on the road, the new road, instead of the old road that you're familiar with. But you're right. Sometimes as soon as you get over that newness of it, you find yourself right back in the same rut if you let yourself be. Other questions,
Okay,
comments?
thank
Yes, you're welcome.
I have one, Barbara.
Yes, sir.
I'm not gonna read it, but it's in Matthew um 25, I'm thinking, and verse 14 on. You remember that in there, this master was getting ready to leave, and he was leaving to his servant one 5 talents, the other two, and the other one. Okay, when he did that, the ego was playing in this right here. Now you probably can get a lot of other stuff out of it. This is what I was getting out of it. The ego got played in it here. The one that he got the 5 talents, he took those 5 talents and made 5 more talents. And the one with the 2 talents, I think he uh, did something with it, and he made more back from his. But the one with the other ego, instead of him doing what the other man did, if he'd have put it in the bank and let it draw interest, he'd have still made some money, made something with his talent. So he took it and buried it. His ego made him bury his. And when the man of the owner came back of the talent that he had gave them, he was looking to see what did they do with it. Both of the other two gained more out of the talent that the man had gave him. But the other servant, I knew he was coming back. I knew he was gonna come back and see if I had the talent. He wouldn't dug it up and get it back to him. Gave him the same thing that he had gave him. He said, "Why you didn't do like your other brothers or other servants? They gained more than what I gave them." And it wasn't nothing he could say. He said, "If you'd put it in the bank, let it draw into it, would be better than you burying it." So, like what I was saying, they use their talent to make more for what they had. Because God always have everybody to have a talent, and not only that he, if your ego come against what you try to do, you do like that last man, you'll bury it. But their ego had them to make more from what they had. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I hear exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
It's like the one who went and buried it was functioning out of fear of losing it or fear of something, fear of displeasing the guy. But it's not unlike what we've been given, like you said. All of us have been given the opportunity to do something, to give something, to be something, some kind of talent. And so the issue is, are we allowing our egos to keep us from being expressive of all that the Creator is in terms of His essence in us? And that's what Kathy was talking about a minute ago. That people are so comfortable where they are, they don't want to take the risk of getting out of the ditch. They would rather stay in the ditch than take the risk of getting out of the ditch themselves.
That's right.
I know some of the other teachers, Charles, may have a response as well, but your example is right on the money when it talks about when you're talking about what kinds of things, what are our fears, what are our basic talents, and what are we doing with them?
You're right.
I just wanted to make one quick point that relates both to what Kathy and Charles had to say, and it is that even though the people may be stubborn, and this applies to us as well, it applies to everyone, and we may not use the talents necessarily that we have. At any particular point, it's all about the moment of the present moment, which we talked about the past 2 days as well. So at any point, no matter what has happened in the past, we have the opportunity to use those talents and or not be stuck in the ego, and or not to be lazy, or and or not to be stuck in the rut. And so just making the point that it doesn't matter what has happened in the past. It doesn't matter in terms of necessarily thinking about what's in the future. It's more so of taking advantage of those opportunities at any given time, because there's always, I think Audrey mentioned earlier, there's always that opportunity. There's a limited amount of opportunities. No matter what had transpired in the past, in a sense, you have not, or we have not ruined it, so to speak, or in a sense, we have not failed. And you failed when there is no possible opportunity in the future, and that is never the case. I just wanted to add that little piece. Finish.
Thank you. Anybody else? We talked about the ego keeping us in cyclical behavior. It's react. We react this way, and the next time we react the same way. For 20 years, as Kathy said, people have been doing things. We've been, and we were there. We were there. We're not trying to say they are beneath us. They are us, and we are them. We were there. That it took us varying amounts of time to get off that wheel of going round and round and round again about the same thing. But there's a way that we can begin to eliminate that behavior, that cyclical condition behavior that keeps us in the same place. It's almost like we're standing there marching and marking time and not moving backwards and not moving forward, not doing anything. But it's our thoughts, our feelings, our speech, and our actions that create the world that we are and the world we live in. And so part of what we got to do is examine those thoughts and speech, those thoughts and feelings, and allow ourselves to feel them. Sometimes we don't want to feel things that have made us uncomfortable, but that's what part of the journey is. That's what part of the struggle is internally. We have to allow ourselves to examine our thoughts, our feelings, our speech, and our action. And by doing that, opening up and saying, okay, well, why is this causing me fear? What is it that's making me angry? What is it that makes me just follow the leader without asking questions? What is it that makes me not like so and so just because I don't like the way she? We have to ask ourselves these questions, because we got to get off of this wheel of doing the same thing over and over again. Because when we get into the self mode, that spiritual mode, all those opportunities that we hadn't even thought about while we were on that wheel doing the same thing over and over again just unfold themselves and reveal themselves to us. And we have infinite amounts of choices about everything. So we are the ones who got to we got to do this. We got to study ourselves. We got to know ourselves. And that can take a lifetime, guys. That can take a lifetime.
Hey, Barbara, I had another thought. It took us back to the beginning with Abel and Cain, and a lot of us got the Abel and Cain in us. And I saw that when God told Cain, you can do better, you can do good if you try. And God was talking to me. And instead of him listening, he said he was crouching at the door. And he was still trying to get Cain to do better. But Cain's ego took over real bad. And he had this slave, Abel.
Right.
And so in that case, it's everybody's ego They can use it the way Cain did it, or they can use the ego like um, Abel. And that's in every man, Cain and Abel.
Yes, those attributes are in all of us. We're them, they're us. The issue is, are we going to tame those animalistic attributes that are in us and are a part of us? Are we going to tame them? And are we going to tell them what to do? Are we going to allow them to continue to run wild? Because that's what animalistic, they just run wild. And are we going to let them run wild and control us? That's the issue. When we bring those unconscious thoughts, those things that we don't want to face, those thoughts in our minds, that's part of the internal journey. And they're unconscious a lot of times. They're buried. But when we say, this day I want to see what's in me, it begins to uncover them and to bring them into your conscious. Well, when you bring them from the unconscious to the conscious, you can deal with them better. You can understand what put that in me. An example is a lady was talking about feeling like she was going to drown all the time when she was around bodies of water. And she didn't know what the root of that was. And she finally said something to her mother, and her mother said, well, you know, when you were a child, you were in the bathtub, and you fell in the bathtub, and you almost drowned. Now, she was a toddler, so she didn't know enough to get up or whatever. Or she was a baby. She didn't know enough to get up. But that was the root of why she had this feeling that followed her through adulthood. We all have those kinds of things that we've got to open up and reveal in ourselves, because those are the kinds of things that keep us on the escalator, and the escalator just goes round and round. It doesn't go forward. It just goes round and round and round. We can change what we understand and what we know. We can change those untamed kinds of impulses when we know about them, when we face them. Any other questions?
What made me decide to change was when we had the school at the Association building, and Reverend Richards was teaching. And the ministers was in the associate ministers. Well, I think some of the pastors too was in his class. And he was in his teaching. I heard, things and stuff that I never heard before, and I was like, this. I started getting a hunger for what he was teaching, and knowing that me being in the Baptist church, a lot of that, they would have said, totally different witchcraft or whatever, that they say, and that's not true and stuff like that. But anyway, and Reverend Richards had mentioned it before about how just about everybody in the whole association building came to his class, and they had to make some arrangements because everybody their ears were itching. They wanted to hear what he was teaching, and a lot of them was getting truth. And so when they finally end the class, he decided they had only the associate ministers was teaching them. Everybody else had dropped off, and it was probably about 2 men that stuck with the whole class, and the rest of us was women, probably about 13, I think, or 14 altogether. But even when it stopped there, and he said that the Lord had led him to have it, at his church, and I went, and my pastor, he never said, no, you don't need to go there, and I told him that I wanted to continue the teaching, and he said, well, darling, if that's what you want to do, he said, you go right ahead. He said, I have no problem with it, and I've been with Reverend Richards for a long time, and I mean, it's been, I know, over 15 years, and so I go, and what I learn, I come back, and I share it with, those that really want to, want to learn, and I can't get it, really all down pat, but what I do know and take notes, then I share it with them. So I thank God for the teaching that he have taught me, along the years, because it have really opened my eyes up to a lot of things, and I just thank God for it.
And the issue is everybody's not going to receive what you tell them, but there's going to be some who do. And those are the ones whose world will change, just like yours.
Right.
Just like mine. I keep saying yours, but just like mine, each of us has been there. Other questions? Any other comments about what we've been talking about? Because my goal tonight is not just to talk. We've been talking about this for a minute, but I want to be able to address any specific questions if there are any, and let it unfold itself. And if there are not any, I don't plan to keep you on the line just for the sake of doing that.
Hey, Bobby, this is Ron.
Hey, Ron.
I was looking for something that I can't remember if you or Audrey said this yesterday, but it just kind of tied in for with what everybody was saying. I think for the most part, the church, at least the African church, does operate in fear. It reminds me of that cliche or adage that talks about if you keep the elephant chained to a tree, you can take the train. If you keep him there long enough, rather, you take the chain away. He's not going to move. He's going to stay there. And we don't realize it. And I'm talking we as a unit, as an African people, don't realize that through religion we're still in bondage, and people are afraid to move. And that kind of ties in with the talents that someone brought up, and all the other examples, Cain and Abel. But what was said yesterday, I wrote down, is someone said, I can't change the world until I change me. And I wrote next to that, rather, I change the world by changing me. So what Kathy said is real. The hearing something different, the having the thirst and hunger, even if the thing you hear is internally, there has to be something to make you move. And see the realness of all this is going back and tying in the situation with the ship and the storm. As someone said yesterday, the storm can't stay. The ship can't stay in the harbor if there's a storm. It has to go out. It's built to protect itself in the open sea when there's a storm. So when you look at self and take a good look at examining self, the storms are invited. And the more you become enlightened, the more you enlighten others, these things appear to you, and you also have those storms or controversial moments to help you to see and to grow and to move into that direction. So the ego, to me, it's no different than how we talk about darkness and light. Pastor talks all the time about turning it into enlightenment. To me, the ego is turned into enlightenment. It's turned into that by, for lack of a better word, a type of submission, a type of what if this leads to that, or what if this I'm trying to see, or I see that there's more here. I hear what Kathy is saying, so there must be more. Maybe I need to go to the class. So the more you do that, the more the ego comes under self and not always battle with self. So I just add that we are all in a stage of transforming ourselves, and there are some that just plain old fearful about doing that. And believe it or not, the little things that you do, the little things that you see, help them to realize that this is a journey that if they truly want to grow, if they truly want to step out of that comfort zone, they too need to do this for themselves. This is not something that Kathy can do for them or any Reverend Richard can do for us. Everybody has to step out and kind of captain your own ship, knowing that it's going into rougher waters. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Ron. Other comments or questions? So my question tonight is, what's in your mirror? You know how the guy has a wallet and has a credit card. So what's in your wallet? The question is, what's in our mirror? What's in your mirror? What have you looked at? What's been reflected to you and to me that shows us who we are and what we need to look inside ourselves and search ourselves? That's what the mirror is for. So whenever there are external circumstances that seem to get our attention, it does get our attention. It's a mirror for us. It's a mirror for us to dig deeply within ourselves, because there's so much more of us. There's so much more of me that needs to be freed from the baggage that I have. But I'm grateful that my desire is to continue to press forward and to become aware of what's in me. Because once I know what's in me, that's when I know that I am the Elohim that I am. The more I know about that, the more I know I am Elohim. And so it begs the question, if you know you're Elohim, what's next? Well, it's an ever-expanding kind of relationship. It's not bound by time. It's not bound by political affiliation or church, family, or anything like that in terms of Baptist, Methodist, blah, blah, blah. It's bound by my knowing who I am and thereby being what I need to be, and showing myself as who I am in my walk, in my talk, and my speech and my action, so that others will say, well, something's different. What's going on? How are you doing this? How are you dealing with this? I know you've had all this sickness. I know you had, we had about 7 or 8, maybe 9 deaths in our family in 2019. It was a rough year. But you know, it's all in knowing the Elohim you are, and the fact that your bodies are simply that. It's a vessel that holds the essence of you, your spirit, and that spirit never, ever dies, regardless of whether you see the body anymore. And so we've got to get to the point where we can just free ourselves of the bondage of thinking all we are is what you see on the outside. So again, the question is, what's reflected in your mirror? And once you see it, what are you doing about it? Okie dokie. Yeah, if there are no other questions, I'm going to wrap it up for tonight, or for right now.
Well, that question just makes you think, makes you self-reflect, and it's challenging. So
That's why
there.
Everybody's mirror shows them something different. So it's not a one-size-fits-all
Yeah.
kind of question either.
Yeah, I'm like Ron. It do make you think.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll continue to see the universe with light. That's all we can do. And there are going to be some people, Kathy, in some of these churches that are going to be open and receptive and are going to be able to look in their mirrors because of the words that are being spoken in the universe by us, that there is more, that you are more, that you can do more. And I don't mean that literally just acting, but you can be you. You can be your true self. Because when we are our true self, we don't need to be told what we got to do next. We just be. And we understand. Then we begin to understand that we are sharers. We're givers and receivers. And that's the other thing. We got to, one thing I had to learn to receive. Because if you don't learn to receive, then you don't have very much to pass through your hands to give. But the other thing is that the person giving to you gives with the intent of sharing with you. But if you don't receive it, it's like putting a wall up or a fence up. And so once we understand who we are, then we learn to balance giving and receiving, wisdom and understanding, the way we communicate and our emotions, the way we respond and the actions we take when we live in this, when we live as this Elohim who's living a human life. So it's a lot to take in, but I'm open. I've been shown so much, and I'm up for the challenge. And it doesn't have to be, and I don't mean it negatively. I am not inviting stuff to happen to me. That's not what I'm talking about. What I am talking about is I've purposed and set my intent on being open to learning who I am even more.
I like that.
You saying that, you lost about 9 members. It's probably the same way with me. I'm the last living sibling. And when it just started, seemed like it was just happening back to back with me. And it got to a point to where I would cry, and then I would try to rationalize everything with my mind. And at one point when I had to come out of work, it was at a point to where I was just saying, Lord, just take me. I'm tired, I'm tired. It seemed like nothing goes right. Here I am having to come out of work, but it was all in the Creator's plan. But then later on, I had to realize that it's how I choose to live, to deal with the things that I'm going through. I could choose to break and give up, or I could choose to push my way through these things, to help somebody. Not saying that I'm macho and nothing can tear me down, because it wasn't that way, but it ended up that I had to help my family members through situations, and now it's like I'm the shoulder that they lean on, and and I wouldn't dare tell them, well, don't cry, I tell them cry, because that's a relief valve, but things come up. But it was how I had to look in that mirror and see me, the Creator in me, who I was in Him, and learn how to deal with things without having to, and there's nothing wrong, I say, depending on other people to give you advice, but some things, you have to learn to just deal with them on your own, because I would find myself saying, well, Lord, why me? And then I would hear a still voice say, why not you? You know better than nobody else. And then when I start hearing that say that, and I'm feeling that right now, when I heard that voice say that, then I realized, well, why should somebody else go through it, and I be the one over here in the other corner, and I'm not going through anything, and I'm just looking at them, and they're looking at me saying, well, she thinks she's better than we are, but I had to realize that things are going to happen in our lives, and it's how we choose to deal with the things that happen in our life. Because I even found myself with my last sibling, my sister passed, and my brother too. And I asked Richard, I said, am I real? I can't even cry. And he said, baby girl, okay. And then I found myself, sometime I would get to myself and I would cry, but it'd just be for a moment. I wouldn't stay there, because I knew that if I stayed there, I would get into a depressed mode, and I didn't want to get in that mode. I wanted to be able to stand on my feet and realize that one day, too, I'm going to have to leave here. I'm not going to be here forever either, but I can't let this destroy me because I was the last one that's still here. And all of my mom's sisters and brothers, now it's only one sister living, and she lives in New York. So she very seldom come home. Now she has a little dementia sitting in, so, she's not able to give advice. Well, she never really gave that much advice to anybody anyway, but she can't, some of them call her and look for advice, and she can't tell them anything because her mind is not all together there either. So it's just like the sister and brothers, siblings, all of us are left here, except, like I say, I'm the only one on my mom's side of the family, and my aunt that lived here, that passed away. All of her siblings are still living. So it's like we became closer. And we always been close, but we gotten even closer and depending on one another. And we even called a meeting and said, we're here for one another. You're the only one left in your family, but now you're, instead of being our cousin, they call me their aunt. They call me, I'm always Aunt Cat, and so I'm Aunt Cat to all of them. And so they depend on me a lot to see them through. And I tell them things are going to come up, and it's going to be like the tornado is coming to tear us down. But we got to stand. And if you have to cry, you just scream and holler and cry and get it on out. But we're going to make it through this. So it's like it brought the family, it brought them closer together. And so now I see things in that mirror. I see me in that mirror a whole lot clearer, because at one point the mirror was foggy and I couldn't see my way through it. But now the mirror is clear, and now I see things clearer.
And Kathy, isn't it something that it's because you chose to make that a decision? It was a choice to make a decision. And so for a lot of us, the mirror is a lot clearer. I don't see everything yet, but, it talks about the glass is kind of dark. The glass is not as dark as it was, just like you said. And the other thing is that what you said about family being even closer. I mean, could it be because you made a decision that you're not going to let this destroy you and bring you down, that you contributed and influenced the family being even closer in spite of transitions? So we don't know what's going to happen. It's that's just really touched me, because it showed me what we've been talking about, that there's so many possibilities that open up to us when we trust the Elohim that we are, because we are connected. We are one with the Creator. And so when that wisdom flows through, it just makes us open to so many other things that we wouldn't even thought about when we had to come up with it in our own mind with our own limitations. So thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks.
Hey, Barbara,
Anyone
this right
else?
here probably be for you and Ron thing.
Yes.
When the Father, when he want to come into you, you got to make the space for him to come into you. And the other thing is, when you give out, what I mean by give out, that means you give out of the space that the Father had filled you in. That's
Charles,
what I'm
can
asking.
I want you to tell me. Can you just share a little bit more about what you mean when you say you have to create the space for the Father? What do you mean by that?
What I mean by that, it's just like if you're spending time doing this or doing that, and the Father is trying to fill you, put something in you, and you don't have the space or the time to rearrange yourself to have that time, and for him to fill you with what he needs to fill you with, and like I'm saying, the other thing is when you only can give out what the Father don't fill you with. You use that what Father filled you with to give to others. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? You give out what the Father put in you.
I understand you just
I
answered
did.
your own question. Yeah, it's in you, Charles. You always, just about all the time, you answer your own question. But I'm glad you asked it because there are other people who may not have that understanding. But yes, you have to make room, make space, and that's what we're talking about when we're talking about getting these animalistic nature under control, because that makes space. Meditating, emptying ourselves makes space. Letting thoughts just filter through our mind without making judgment calls on what they mean, or without letting them grow in us. Just unripened thoughts. Let them just come through and go on through. That's making space. So you're absolutely right. It's hard to give when you're not receiving. So thank you for that. Thank you for that question and answer.
Thank you.
I think.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Ron.
I think all of these lessons kind of tie together, and one of the eye openers for me was when we looked at being human, and not knowing that we had stepped away from that, and what that means from a spiritual perspective, what position that puts you in for mankind. And I listened to what you said about opening yourself up and to receive and understand more of who you are. And I listened to what Kathy talked about, those who are in the comfort zone. And I think those two things are linked together. I think that enlightenment is not only for this side, as we talked about. I think it's for the other side. There may be some who leave here in their comfort zone, but it doesn't mean that that's the end. I believe that. I think that as you said, Barbara, as though there are those. there might be very few people who seek that or who have opened themselves up to that, but they become the conduit for enlightenment. And we say that all the time, but that is so real, because just like the people that we're describing, they not only has that been us in some ways, that still may be that we're in our comfort zone on certain aspects of life, and we also know family members or people that we're close to that are still in that place. So it's a mouthful, and I agree with you. I don't know. As I look in the mirror, I'm not sure what I see reflecting back right now. I do think it is a positive thing. I think that my willingness to, as you said, to be open to grow and to know more, that's a mouthful. And I think that is the thing that changes the world. That is the thing that moves the world. As you do that, as I do that, and we be one, that is what changes things. That's all Kathy was saying in her own words, looking at her family and them relying on her because they see light. They see something that is needed. They see something that is appreciated. They see that part of her that helps to bring them comfort and peace. And that's what I hope that we're moving toward as well. So that just kind of stood out when you said that to me.
Thanks for sharing, Ron. We change the world when we change ourselves. Because when we change ourselves, we respond differently to the world. We act differently. So you're right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that reminder.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's 7:00, y'all. Unless there's another question that's burning right now, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And I don't know what our lesson will be on Saturday yet. Well, you know? No, that's right. But thank you guys for tonight. Thank you for sharing. And thank you guys for being vulnerable enough, showing your vulnerableness, because that's when I really learn, when I hear what's coming from your heart. Not just what you say, but I can tell it's coming from your heart. And when the heart speaks, it touches others' hearts too. So continue to speak that way. Don't let yourself hide behind the mask of the ego anymore. Be real, be genuine, be honest, and speak from your heart. So thank you all. Thank you for the questions, and thank you for your attention. And with that, I'm going to say good night to you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Thank
Hi,
you.
y'all.
Bye-bye.
Night, family.